As you can read in the parish bulletin this morning, my name is Father Bernard Olszewski. I am a Polish boy. And I am originally from New Jersey, but am now a priest in the Diocese of St Georges in Grenada, the island in the Western Caribbean. Except I live in Buffalo, New York. Because everyone tells me, Buffalo, Caribbean, about the same, And I live in Buffalo because it's from there that I travel every weekend to a different parish in order to preach on behalf of the poorest of the poor served by Cross Catholic Outreach. And it is on their behalf that I'm at St. Theresa this weekend once again. And I would like to thank Father Phil very much for his kind invitation to allow us to be here yet once again. I'd like to begin by thanking this parish community for your support of the work of Cross Catholic in the past. Because of your generosity, lives have been changed. Because of your work, because of your care and concern, mothers today in parts of the world that you will never see are celebrating with their children, just as mothers here can celebrate with theirs. And for all of that, we thank you. Today in the readings, 3 words seem to dominate what we feel about today's events: hope, joy, and love. Let all the earth cry out to God with joy. That's what we sang together. We sing for joy not because the world is in the condition it is, but we sing for joy the world as it will be transformed in the power of Jesus Christ. For as our second reading tells us, we are people of hope. We believe and therefore hope that the world will be transformed back into the perfect world that God created it to be. For God, in that moment of creation, created a world of perfect harmony and justice and peace. But because we as humans were part of that world, and because we thought we knew better than God, sin entered the world and the unity was fractured. But from that moment on, God gave us the hope to believe that through God's grace and power, when and if we were open to it, the world would indeed be transformed back into that kingdom. And so through prophets and judges, signs and wonders, God sought to bring us back. But it was only in the incarnation of his only Son, one like us in all things but sin, that we can see in Jesus how we are to live and what we are to do. And today Jesus tells us that if we wish to love God and have his Son live within us, there is only one thing we need to do, and that is to live the commandments. And the commandments that Jesus explains to us are not complex, but simply 2. Love God with your whole heart, mind, and soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. Put God at the center of our universe. And Augustine tells us that all things will then fall into place. And the only way in which we know that God is the center of our universe is by the quality of our actions with our sisters and brothers in the world. Because as St. John tells us, how can we think that we love God whom we cannot see if we do not show that love for our sisters and brothers whom we can see? Today, Jesus promises that we are not alone. that he has invited each and every one of us to be his ambassador in the world, to change it into God's kingdom. But we do not do this on our power alone, nor solely as individuals. We do this by the power of God's grace living within us, the power of this Eucharist, and as Jesus promises today, the power of the Spirit. And we do it not as single individuals, but we do it as church. United together, we transform the world by doing the simple actions of carrying out God's will, one action at a time. And every time we do, we bring light into the world. We bring joy into the world. We bring hope into the world. Until finally, the last traces of the darkness of sin will be dispelled. And as a family redeemed, we will enter into the fullness of the kingdom for all eternity. Cross Catholic Outreach was founded to be an instrument of change to help bring about that transformation. We can't cure world poverty. Jesus told us that. The poor you will always have with you. But I never heard Jesus say that that was okay. He reached out to everyone in need, and because he embraced them in his love, he changed their lives, and that is what you and I must do in hope and joy for our sisters and brothers in the world. Cross Catholic begins with a simple idea. If you want to know what the poor need, ask them. Then look for ways to meet those needs. So we don't invent programs or create projects. We're in long-term partnerships with bishops and priests, religious and laity, missionaries in the world who are doing great things, but they need the help of people like you and me to make that work possible and hopefully take it to the next level where we can actually break the cycle of poverty that has kept people enslaved for generation after generation for no other reason except they happened to have been born there. If you remember any of our history, we began working in the Caribbean, places like Haiti, Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, and Grenada. 20 years later now, we are in 36 countries of the world, in the Caribbean, Central and South America, Asia, and in Africa. And in those countries, we help sponsor 263 different projects that run the whole gamut of human need. Hospitals, clinics, and medical distribution centers, building schools and scholarships so children can go to school, orphanages, homes for the aged, homes for children with special needs, microloans for families to begin businesses, agricultural projects where whole villages can increase the yield of the land, and vocational and trade centers where young men and women can learn a skill, get a job, break that cycle. As good as all of that is, the reality is we need to start with three fundamental human needs, things you and I generally take for granted: adequate food, clean drinking water, safe, secure shelter. Because without those, not much else can get done. So think for a moment, if you can picture in your mind, a 6-year-old boy. This is a young boy I saw just last month in Guatemala. He was walking down a hill from where his house was located to a water source, which was the only working water source in the village of Cholitos. And there he carried a bucket. At 6 years old, he filled that bucket, placed it on his head, and then walked up that hill, because that is the water for his family to drink and cook with that morning. That's life for about 800 million people in the world. So we dig wells. Then with villagers, we lay pipes to bring fresh water to places that have never had it. Suddenly, lives are transformed. A miracle happens because people discover that water is clear. Hygiene up, disease down. Life is never the same. That is God's kingdom, one well at a time. We build houses because there are people in this world who live in conditions that even if I showed you, you wouldn't believe it. We build a simple 3-room cinder block home on a concrete slab with a tin roof. So it means that on days like this, when rain pours down, water doesn't come through the thatch. Families don't stand in ankle-deep mud inside their home. There's an outhouse, cooking area, and quite frankly, it's nothing we would like to live in. But for the families living there, it is a dream come true. Because now they and their families can live in safety and security with the peace of mind of a front door with a key they can lock. That is God's kingdom, one house at a time. The one thing, though, we all need is food. And so we help to feed people. In the world in which we live, in this year, 2023, 45% of all of the children aged 5 and under who die in the world die because of malnutrition. Children who survive that suffer the effects the rest of their lives. So we partner with an organization in Minneapolis because they prepare packets of food which they call Vita food. Rice, beans, vegetables, and flakes of soy, all fortified with vitamins, minerals, and iron, and then packed in a plastic bag. That bag is emptied into a quart of water, boiled for a half hour. So even where you can't drink the water, people can still eat. Every packet feeds 6 people a meal, and they donated it all. But they can't get it to the people who need it the most, and we can through our network of partners. So when we send a 40-foot shipping container of Vita food to a country, we are able to feed 243,000 people a meal. In Central America, that costs about $20,000. But for $20,000, we can feed just under 250,000. And that is loaves and fishes. Last year, we fed over 26 million people. But there were still millions who did not have enough. I know in the world today, parents are going to have to make a choice to choose which of the children can eat today and who has to wait until tomorrow because there isn't enough food for everyone. Which one of us would want to have to choose out of the children who went to church, the children's church, to choose which of them could not eat today? No parent should ever have to do that. Mothers in Haiti, I've mentioned this before, they start their day making what they call good bread. Only it's not good and it's not bread because they scrape up dirt, mix it with a little bit of shortening, a few sprinkles of salt, and then baked in the sun. And when a child cries out in the pangs of hunger and a mother has nothing, dried mud cakes are dinner because at least it is something in the stomach. Now, 10 years ago, the village of Zacapa in Guatemala, a young lady was brought to Sister Vitalina at the Hope of Life Center. 5th of 7 children. Mother deceased, father subsistence farmer who does his best. But when his daughter Maritza was brought to Sister at the age of 14, she weighed exactly 19 pounds. Because her 6 brothers had to eat first since they had to work the farm each day. Through the grace of God, the love of the center, and the care she's received these last 10 years, I'm happy to say that in her way, Maritza is thriving, and that is God's kingdom, one child at a time. All of us are called to be prophets. We're baptized into the life of Jesus, priest, prophet, king. We are the prophets of the gospel. Hopefully, prophets of peace, joy, and hope. We are called to be the manifestation of the gospel for our sisters and brothers in the world. Some are called to make this by going. They're called missionaries. But most of us are called to do this, to go by giving. Thoughts, prayers, and resources to change the world into God's kingdom. Today, as always, there's no collection for cross-Catholic outreach, but I do ask your help. At the ends of the pews and in some of the pews in the center, there are brochures. I'm asking you to share those down. Think of it as a Mother's Day gift. I'd like every family to take one home. Do 3 things for me. First, read it, because it reminds you who we are, but it explains how miracles can happen, just as they did in the Acts of the Apostles. Because we work collaboratively and directly, and because almost 95% of all of our resources go directly to the poor, we work miracles. $35 feeds 233 children. $75 life-saving medicine for a child like Maritza. $250 is a family beginning a business raising chickens. $500, a pump to deliver fresh water. And for those who can afford it, $2,500 will help to begin building a new home for a family to keep them in safety and security. So please read it. Second, I ask you as always, please do not pray for the poor. Please pray with the poor. Because they who have nothing trust in God completely. If we could learn to pray as the poor do, we could change the world. Join your prayers with the poor that poverty be addressed. Finally, can you be part of the solution offered by Cross Catholic through a donation? And to do it, you simply tear off the top half, because the bottom half is your mailer. In it, you place the check made out to Cross Catholic. You could also use credit or debit card, PayPal. You can become a monthly donor. Make an impact every month. You could call our 800 number to do this, or use electronic means. Go to the website. And for those of you who are joining us remotely, the website is crosscatholic.org/outreach. Or text the word blessings, BLESSINGS, to the number 474747. Both take you to a landing page. Make your donation securely online. Please include your prayer intentions, because in the office every day we begin with an hour of prayer and study. Tuesdays, these are the prayers. Seal it, mail, miracle. If you are thinking, ooh, yeah, I should do that, but you're afraid this brochure is going to get lost, have no fear. I will be in the narthex at the end of Mass. Be happy to take it then. I will be at Donuts and would be happy to take it then. I will put it together, send it off on Tuesday. I stand before you not for me, but for those who cannot speak for themselves, the poorest of the poor, whose faces you don't see and voices you don't hear. Because I do know at the end of time there's a simple test. Jesus will ask, when I was hungry, Did you feed me? Thirsty, did you give me clean water? When I needed training or medicine, education, a house, did you help me? If we can say, yes, Lord, I did that for the least of my sisters and brothers, I did that for you. Jesus will say, my friend, come into the glory of heaven forever. On behalf of the poorest of the poor, whose privilege it is for me to be their voice for you today, thank you.
Please like, subscribe, or comment below.